Hello, my friends, and welcome to another podcast episode. Thank you so much for taking time to join me here in this space. And today I want to take a little bit of time for reflection on what's been going on, what I've been observing in my work. So, in the one-to-one mentoring sessions with other female practitioners, and also in my training certification. So, in the trauma informed somatic teacher and coach for women training certification. We just started our spring cohort last weekend on the 13th and 14th of April. And if you are interested in joining that training, you can still join our spring cohort before we start with module 2. If you are interested, you can follow the links and reach out to me, and I'll be very happy to chat with you. But one of the things that I've been reflecting on a lot is how we can work in a better way, because this is something that comes up a lot in my conversations with other practitioners, especially female practitioners. If you've ever felt frustrated, stuck, overwhelmed, doubting what you're doing, questioning what you're doing, wanting like you want to run away, feeling like you want to hide, you are not alone. You are definitely not alone. I've been mentoring and coaching and supervising and training frontline workers, volunteers, practitioners for the last 20 years. And I can tell you that each one of us feels those feelings and emotions at times. Each one of us questions whether we are able to do this work, whether we are ever going to succeed in building a business that is sustainable and thriving, whether we are actually qualified enough, whether we are able to work in this way long term. And so for me, when I think about all the work that we do, one thing comes to mind, and that is that success is not a race. Success is not about running forward as fast as we can, moving forward to overrun your competition, to show who's the best. At least this is not what success is for me. And I know for many of us who are heart-centered practitioners, very conscientious practitioners, I know that it's not for you either. Success is about finding your own rhythm. And this is where that cyclical rhythm can be so useful, to understand that just like the breath, you need to breathe in and you need to breathe out. If you only try to breathe in, try it for yourself now. Take 10 in breaths without any out breaths. And if you manage to do that, take 20 in breaths without any out breaths. You will see how quickly you are not able to continue that. And for me, the breath is a really wonderful metaphor for the way that we live, for the rhythm of life itself, because breath is life. The in-breath, the expansion, taking in the new breath, new oxygen. This is like the action that we take, that we show up, we get visible, we keep going, we create new things, we reach out to people, we are being visible and proactive, and we're taking lots of action. And the out breath is like the time that we take to rest, to just be, to connect with others from that space of being. Sleep, I mean, oh my god, sleep is a big thing, isn't it? And really just finding that rhythm of the in-breath and out-breath, within the body, it creates health. Within our life and business, it creates a rhythm that sustains us, that helps us to express ourselves in a way that feels aligned and right, that helps us to create and enjoy it, that helps us to build offerings and businesses and make an impact that we believe in, connect with others in a way that is nurturing and supportive and collaborative for everyone. So the success, or their success, success is more about a rhythm, finding your own rhythm, finding the way that really works for you, finding a way that nourishes and sustains you. One of the things, so in module 1 of our training, the Trauma-Informed Somatic Teacher and Coach for Women, in Lab 3, we talk a lot about how can we support ourselves when life is challenging, when there's something that is happening around you, when you might be living with chronic conditions, and many of us do. What are the foundational things, including practices and ways of seeing things, way of thinking about things, those beliefs that we have, the stories that we tell ourselves, how can they support us and nourish us in the process? And I often say that for me, the practices that you can only do when you feel really great and on top of the world are really rubbish practices. For me, the practices and ways of being that are available to me, no matter how I feel, are the practices that I want to learn and cultivate and practice daily. And this is why I feel so strongly about somatic practices. Somatic practices of somatic checking in, somatic self-compassion, the 3-step process. These are the foundational practices. Knowing your needs. How can you meet your needs if you don't know what your needs are? How can you feel empowered within your life if you feel that you cannot understand and meet your needs? And it all starts obviously with learning how to understand your needs, learning how to understand the language of your body. What is your body telling you in this moment? So recently I also ran a masterclass called Overcome Your Imposter Syndrome. And we had a really great conversation at the end of that masterclass. So I delivered the masterclass, and then at the end, I stopped the recording and we had a discussion. And one of the things that I talked about in the masterclass is that helping professions, coaches, therapists, healers, yoga teachers, and therapists, body workers, wellness practitioners are particularly susceptible to self-doubt, questioning of the self, perfectionism, fear of being seen, fear of speaking out, the way that, talking about their own unique point of view. And that might particularly question their accomplishments and feeling like they winging it or they gonna be exposed as a fraud for even asking for money, for charging for their work. And within that, women in particular are more prone to that. And now, why is that? Why is that? There are so many different reasons for it. So many different reasons. But one of the things that comes up, and this is what we discuss a lot in the training, is that social conditioning. Social conditioning. What it means to be female, what it means to be a female practitioner, and that expectation of having to give all the time, having to be always available, having to be compassionate and nice, having to be a good girl, having to take care of others, having to sacrifice your own needs and your own life for taking care of others. There is a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation on women to do that. And the interesting thing is that we all kind of know it, but because of how our society, Western society, is structured, we are like a fish in the water. In water, we don't see it. And sometimes the reason for this is that it's just too painful to acknowledge it. Because when we acknowledge it, so often we can feel powerless. Like, now I see it. Okay, what the hell am I going to do with it now? I can't change the system. I can't change the society structure. I can't do anything about it. And the reality is that we can do something about it. This is one of the things that we can work with, and we can always choose how we relate to something within our experience. If you disagree with it, I would invite you to read a book by Viktor Frankl called The Man's Search for Meaning. So Viktor Frankl is a survivor of the concentration camp, was a survivor of the concentration camp, and writes about his experience. Really knowing that, yes, the situation within which you are is difficult, and we can choose how we relate to it. Really powerful book. Very, very powerful. And at the same time, really understanding that we cannot do it by ourselves. This is where, so many of us are misunderstanding how we can move forward. So many of us try to do it on our own. And that can come from, not trusting others because of our past experiences, thinking we have to do it ourselves because nobody else will do it. I've got nobody I can rely on. I have to do it myself. And really pushing through and trying to do it on our own. You might name it in so many different things, but it's this sense of not being part of a community, of support system, of sisterhood, whatever you call it, there is, there is this feeling of the constant competition, constant destroying of each other because we feel unsafe because of our past experiences. And one of the things that I feel really strongly about is that we can change that. We can change that if we don't. We can seek those spaces where we can be feeling a little bit more like we belong. We can feel like we can be more vulnerable. We can make connections with others. We can create spaces when we invite others to that space. For me, this is what I always felt really strongly about. It's like, if I can't find a space where I can go in and belong, I'm just going to create that space for myself. I'm going to invite others, other women into that space. But this is part of, that wounding that we have within us. Those younger parts that are not feeling safe. The protector parts who are coming in, trying to protect us from being hurt again, from being taken advantage of, or being manipulated, or being shown that we are wrong for what we are doing. And so we cannot do it by ourselves. And this is the beautiful kind of more feminine quality that both men and women have. Every human being has got this part to them of this way of being able to collaborate, being able to come together, being able to connect with others. And yes, it is difficult at times. I have it in my own experience. The clients that I've worked with had it too. And this is why I talk also about, being one of the voices, moving away from the conditioning of our society that tells us, you've got to be the best. You've got to be the best. Because there isn't enough to go around. There isn't enough clients. There isn't enough money. There isn't enough resources. And that simply leads to us working really hard, ridiculously hard often, and feeling like we are alone, feeling like we can't belong and we don't belong, we are not accepted, and feeling like we have to sit with all of that on our own because we cannot show the vulnerable side. So my invitation to you is to maybe ask yourself a simple question. In response to what I'm talking about today, what is it that you know, but you don't want to acknowledge? What is it that you know, but you don't want to acknowledge? And for me, when I was asking myself that question, and I do ask myself that question very often, it ties in quite often with that sense of vulnerability. Like, I want to do this, but there are parts of me that are scared. Something in me is just saying, no, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to reach out. I don't want to say that. And, one of the things that comes up for me is how healing it is to be seen, to be witnessed, to be acknowledged within the right context, within the right container. And embracing who you are, embracing who you are, acknowledging how far you've come, acknowledging how much time and effort you put in to do the work that you do, how much you care, how much you want to contribute from your heart, knowing that you are doing your best, knowing that you are moving forward. And when you understand that, that's when you can ease into that rhythm, ease into, okay, I've worked really hard and now I just need to rest for a bit. I've been showing up so much and contributing so much, and now I just need a little bit of time to take a step back. Because we are not machines. This is number one reason why we get burnt out, because we are doing everything without taking time to really look after ourselves. And that's the contradiction for me with burnout, that it's that misunderstanding that actually everything, your whole life is built on how well you are, how well you look after yourself. Everything is based on that. Everything. If you are not well because you ran yourself down to the ground, because you haven't balanced this rhythm of activity and rest, then you can't do anything. Nothing at all. And then everybody suffers. Obviously, you suffer, but everybody and everything in your life suffers. So it actually, when you start looking at it in that kind of way, you start understanding it actually makes sense. It makes sense to look after yourself. It makes sense to really connect with that rhythm that you can live your life with. It makes sense to ask for support and connect with others in that way. It makes sense to really acknowledge your inner experience. Of really learning to trust your somatic wisdom or embodied wisdom or somatic intelligence. It's whatever you call it. There are many words that we use for that. Really learning to listen within in an embodied way. So really acknowledge our inner experience. One of the things one of my clients said recently, which I really loved, she said that through this work, she, for the first time, she's coming into spring and she's feeling refreshed. She's feeling that she's got good energy, she's focused, she's feeling excited about the future, about her business. She feels very stable, very connected and present, because she embraced more of that seasonal living and her own rhythm. So she rested over winter rather than pushing through and, going all in, because the January came, and the January is like the first, beginning of the year. Let's be really proactive. Whereas actually, in fact, it's middle of winter. And if we don't rest, then we hit the spring already exhausted. Then we have to recover from it. So what is one thing that you know, but you're trying not to acknowledge? You don't want to acknowledge, or trying to avoid, trying not to acknowledge. Notice what comes up for you. Notice what's true for you. And obviously bringing a lot of that kindness and self-compassion for yourself. I'm not talking about this for you to be hard on yourself. I'm not talking about this for you to judge yourself. And that's where that frustration comes in, that I was talking at the beginning. Like, I should be further than I am. I should have it sorted out by now. And why am I not further? And I want to make changes and they're not happening. And being really hard on yourself. I want to invite you to be kind to yourself. Life is challenging. Life can be really difficult when something is going on for you within your health, when something is going on around you with people that you love or within your work, when you experience bereavement. Life can be really, really challenging, but it is not a race. It's not a race. And when you embrace your own rhythm and find time for you just to be, to connect with nature, to connect with others, to connect with yourself, to do things that bring you joy, to do things that, you loved doing before, but you were too busy to enjoy. Like having a dance, putting the music on and having a dance, having a play with your dog or your cat, playing some games like cards or other games with your friends, sitting in the garden with a cup of tea, doing some gardening, or just sitting, reading a book, going for a nice walk, cooking some nice food. It takes time to cook, to really savor, to really enjoy cooking and enjoy eating, slowing down a little bit. And when we talk about the business, it's obviously how can you approach it differently? How can you approach your work differently? So you enjoy life. That life is not just this one long to-do list. The hustle and grind and tiredness and trying to move forward all the time, and losing the joy, losing the color, losing the flavor out of your life. So as we are moving more into spring and then we will be moving into summer, how can you balance the work, the play, rest? How can you balance all of those? How can you find your own rhythm, the rhythm of your own life, rhythm of your work, rhythm that will really nourish you? Because nobody else can do it for you. Only you can do it for yourself. And that's the power and the challenge of free will, of choosing for ourselves. And remembering that you do not have to do it alone. You can create your own support networks, you can create your own little communities, and you can create what you want. So thank you so much for listening to this podcast. And I really hope that we will get an opportunity to connect with each other, to come together, to make the impact for all of us to live in a better world. Have a really good day and take care for now.